Welcome to AM Prime. It's a brand new day, a brand new morning, and I'm excited that you're here with us. It is the end of a wonderful week. This week we focused on women with International Women's Day. We focused on current affairs topics. We really had a good time. We celebrated creatives and women in the industry, and I'm so thankful that you're joining us for today. Before we get into all our interviews, you know our daily inspiration is what keeps us going throughout the day. And today's daily inspiration is very personal. I heard it yesterday in the morning, I heard it yesterday in the afternoon, so I said I have to share it with you as well. Give yourself a chance. That's it. That's the daily inspiration. Give yourself a chance, and that could be whatever it is to you personally. Give yourself a chance to be happy. Give yourself a chance to love. Give yourself a chance to enjoy things. The pressure that we talked about yesterday, that we put on ourselves, we have to give ourselves a chance to dwell in things, to just lighten up. We deserve opportunities. Don't count yourself out before you've given yourself the opportunity to try something. So today and every day, remember to give yourself a chance. We have a great program here for you today. And joining me for the first interview, we're going to be talking about unpacking mental health. Now, I know this week we focused a lot on women, but this aspect of it is something that I think we should address. Women, sometimes we need to give men a chance as well too. A chance to express their feelings without judgment, a chance to fall apart, to break down, to be vulnerable. And here joining me to talk about this, to discuss the ways that we can do this and unpack mental health with men in particular, is Digicel Charles, and he is going to be joining me to talk about this. He's a holistic life coach. Digicel, thank you for being here with us.
And thank you for having me, Dawn.
Thanks.
Morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Okay,
I'm doing well. I'm fine.
All right. So we're talking a lot about men this morning, and we're going to be talking about mental health and the stigmas attached to it. Why is it so difficult for us as women, as men, to take men seriously when they express themselves, when they express emotions?
Well, I think it's a double-edged sword in that one, it's typical for us to reference conditioning, the way that we have been prepared as a society emotionally, from a very early age. I say women have been normalized, or females have been normalized when it comes to the sphere of emotions, to express those, to dwell in those, to communicate about those, even to be that way. You know, it has become known that it's female, it's feminine, it's lighter, so to speak, to be emotional. But men, we are prepared in the sense that we are supposed to be strong, we are supposed to be brave, and being emotional or being sensitive has never really been associated with being brave or being strong. And I tell people, you know, it's not a gender thing, it's not a male or female thing, but that's something that we are coming to understand now in 2023 or recently. But typically, when you talk about men being prepared to be men, or girls being prepared to be women, girls have always been made to feel more comfortable with being emotional and to express those emotions. But men, we have, you know, we have been told from an early age, boys don't cry. You know, so don't be weak, don't be sensitive, because those things are not in line with being a man.
Right.
You know, so that was about this from early.
Yeah, when I'm listening to you talking and I'm thinking of the phrase, you know, man up. You know, phrases like that, which means to, you know, don't show emotion, don't show you're sweating or you're nervous, you know. Show that sort of bravery and put on that brave face. Talk to us about vulnerability.
Right. Vulnerability, I think there are two things that are fundamental to one, human existence, and two, to relationships, growing, and so on. Those two things are communication and vulnerability. I tell people, you know, communication is like the oxygen. So it means that if you're not communicating in a relationship, eventually that relationship will die. Similarly, it's the same thing with vulnerability, because vulnerability, as defined, it's your willingness to show emotion, it's your willingness to allow your weaknesses or your weaker areas to be known or to be seen. And the thing is, if we want to grow in relationships, and even on an individual level, if you want to grow as an individual, you want to be understood, you want to flourish, you want to grow and to pursue ambition, it's first important for you to take stock of the areas where you are vulnerable,
right,
and then attend to those, nurture those. And then if you're talking on a relationship level, it's important for the other persons, whether it be your significant other, it be your siblings, it be your, extended family members, friends even. If you want those relationships with those people to grow, it's important for you to allow yourself to be supported, allow yourself to be understood by revealing not necessarily just your strong areas,
right,
but those areas where you may need some support to advance or to move further along. And that would require you to be vulnerable, to show those areas.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is understanding that, you can feel your feelings. It's okay to feel anger. It's okay to feel, depressed. And I mean, we see in the news all these reports of persons, committing suicide and causing self-harm to themselves. And, when you look at their lives or you hear the stories coming out of it, you hear that, they've been depressed for a while. They've been trying to reach out for help. Talk to us about that and understanding that it's okay to be depressed. It's okay not to be okay. But it's what we do with that moving forward.
Definitely. I think when it comes to emotions, again, when we talk about social conditioning and preparation, when it comes to emotions, females have been made comfortable with expressing the gamut, or exploring the gamut of emotions, from being extremely angry to extremely sad to extremely happy to excited. It's okay for a female to be that way. And I think that from early, as I said, men have been disadvantaged in that we have been limited in terms of social acceptability. We have been limited to certain emotions. We have been told that we can be brave, we can be strong, we can be excited, we can be happy, we can even be angry. And that's where toxic masculinity could come in. We could be angry, we could be wrong and strong, as we say. But when it comes to being sad, or when it comes to being depressed, or when it comes to feeling a low emotional state, we can't show those things, because one, we would be, judged negatively for it. There would be a lot of stereotypes and criticisms. And so I tell people, not because you don't reveal it doesn't mean that you're not feeling it.
Right.
That interesting thing about feelings is that even though we may ignore it, even though we may try to avoid expressing it or talking about it, it does not stop us from feeling it, because feelings are human. Even if you want to be socially acceptable by revealing certain feelings and hiding with the other ones, if you don't have a healthy coping mechanism, what is going to happen is that very soon what is being hidden in the dark will come out to light.
Right.
And so it comes out in ways that you may not want to. And that's where psychological pain and emotional pain comes in. And I tell people, psychological pain is as powerful or as hurtful as physical pain.
Yeah.
Because about psychological pain is that it has to do with your perception. And you know what we say? Your perception is your reality.
Yes.
It has to do with the way that you perceive yourself, the way that you perceive your set of circumstances, the way that you perceive your life. And once that perception is negative in nature or negative in outlook, it means then that no matter how we try to self-medicate, whether people or with substances or with temporary events or situations, no matter if we try to medicate with those, because this has to do with our entire perception and outlook, and that's being negative, it is going to affect us in all of our situations and all of our relationships. And sooner or later, we would try to find a way to escape that psychological pain, because that's what happens with pain.
Yeah.
If we have a toothache, we might either medicate with some Panadol, or we go to the dentist. If we have some pain in our chest, we might go to a cardiologist and so on. But when it comes to the psychological pain, because there is stigma attached to it, because there is definition attached to it negatively, where one might be perceived as being weak or being frail, or being not ready or undeserving, and all of the other negative connotations that may come with psychological pain.
Yeah.
People prefer to try to deal with psychological pain in private. And as you said, if there is no positive outlet, if there is no support through those relationships and safe spaces, then we may try to take matters into our own hands, and that may not end well.
Yeah, I want to go back to talking about safe spaces just now. But, we saw in the news yesterday where, and we've seen it before, men being, I guess, bashed on social media or in society for, reporting being abused, or, whether it's at the hands of women or anything of that nature. It shows, it's being shown as, a weakness. I would not have reported being abused, you could have report that. And the thing is that it's a crime, and it's a crime committed against a man by a woman. Talk to us about that and men being victims. And, we're not talking about like a victim mentality, but it's you're an actual victim. Something happened to you. You deserve the right to report this crime. You deserve the right to get help. Talk to us about that.
Definitely. The reason why I smiled or I chuckled, when we spoke about it is because, again, the limited view the limited view that we have when it comes to abuse, because sometimes people think abuse is not abuse unless it's physical. So that's why people may say the only abuse we take seriously would be domestic violence or literally somebody abusing a child or so child abuse or domestic violence, sexual abuse, those things that we tend to feel very polarized, or we tend to have very visceral reactions to. People acknowledge those as being abuse. But when we understand that abuse is not necessarily just physical, but by definition it speaks about a misuse or a mistreatment of another human being in a particular sphere, we open up the conversation now to speak about psychological abuse. We open up the conversation to speak about emotional abuse. And in the cases of some relationships or families, we even have financial abuse, where people are being denied the basic right of provision or the basic human right of safety. And that's when we connected now to safe spaces. So when a man talks about abuse or being abused, yes, some people tend to undermine that, or some people tend to ridicule that when it comes to physical abuse. And again, because of the stereotype that men are strong and that women are the fairer vessel. So automatically, if a man comes forward and talks about physical abuse, the connotation is, well, you have to be a weak man or you have to be a soft man. But then when we think about emotional abuse and the fact that men, just because of how we have been conditioned and prepared to not express emotions, yet having a real human need for emotional connection and expression, it means then that when we are starved, men, of the basic right to feel and to express within an environment of safety, within a context of love and acceptance, which will help us grow and flourish. Once we are denied that basic right, but furthermore mistreated in that way where we are already starved and being malnourished, that is something to be taken seriously. But unless our society, unless our bodies of authority, unless they themselves become prepared or become sensitized to the issue, it will continue to be a matter of ridicule. I say that categorically. It will continue to be a matter of ridicule.
And talking about society, how do we as individuals and as a society unlearn that behavior, unlearn that stigma that we've attached to men being vulnerable as weak, men not being able to understand or even see a man as a victim, even when something is done against him, to harm him? How do we unlearn that behavior?
Definitely. I think the first thing that we have to do, and that's the way that I approach, sessions with my clients, when I have to do anything in talking or using the gift, the first thing I do is I go back to the definition. And I think that as a society, it would be well for us to go back to the definitions or to educate ourselves when it comes to certain things. When you think about just the definition of a safe space, you understand that it is a place that is free of bias, free of conflict, free of criticism, and free of potentially threatening conversations. And so you understand that having a safe space or providing a safe space for somebody is connected to a basic human rights.
Yeah.
And so if we were to educate ourselves first on the definitions of certain things, we understand that what is being asked for or what we are requesting to see in society, it's not something that just belongs to marginalized groups. But we understand that safety, whether it be psychological safety, emotional safety, physical safety, it's a basic human right. You know, and I mean, as a believer, I go back to the basic golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Right.
So it's awkward for us to strongly want certain things for ourselves as individuals and have that individualistic approach, but not expecting that it's a basic need or right for the other people who are in our lives or in our spheres of influence for them to want the same.
Yeah.
You know, whether it be family members or friends, our significant others, even our neighbors proverbially, whether it be co-workers or physical, your literal neighbors, other people have the same basic right of safety and acceptance and validation and so on. So if we could first redefine or actually define what those things are,
Yeah.
then we can have a more informed and educated conversation.
Yeah, I want to talk about, accessing therapy and demystifying the stigma around that. But before I talk about that, when in a relationship or friendship or anything of that nature, pulling it back to women, when a man tells you that, he's feeling like he's on his last, or he's falling apart, or, he feels like he's going to break down, at that point, what does the man want? What does the woman? Because at times you may feel helpless. Men are supposed to be this strong figure. They're supposed to have it all together, and now the man is being vulnerable, telling you that he's breaking down. What do you do as the woman, based on your professional, understanding of it?
Lovely. And I would preface my response by saying, women are more susceptible, or they are more typically the fixers in society.
Right.
And it's interesting because people would think that men, we are the fixers. Yeah, we might be the physical fixers. There's something broken in the house, we fix. There's a financial need, we fix. There is, something that needs to be repaired, an appliance and so on, we fix. But when it comes to the emotional side of things, when it comes to the psychological side of things, women are more prone to be the fixers, whether that is something that's received or requested, or whether it's something that's involuntary. Women just run into situations being the fixers. So their children, something is wrong with their children, they want to fix.
Yeah.
Something is wrong with their family members, they want to fix. And especially something is wrong with their partners, they want to fix. They want to help them feel better, because women are nurturers, yeah? And so when it comes to psychological and emotional situations or problems, women run in to fix. But when a man says that he's on his last, one, it has already taken us it's a huge undertaking for a man to say, help, I need help, right? And what we need first and foremost is support and understanding, because we don't just want you to run in without having all of the details or without understanding the context, or the nature in which we need the help and the support. We don't just want you to run in an uninformed way, but we want you to actually, running in means to stop, means to listen, means to support us by one, finding out, how can I help you? I remember when we talk about the account of Adam and Eve, and the fact that Eve was prepared for Adam. She was brought forward for Adam, and it was on the context of God understanding that the man needed a helpmeet. And I like to refer to a helpmeet as a partner or a woman who's going to come in and help you meet your potential, a woman who's going to come in and help you meet the parts of yourself that you don't want, and help you meet a certain level of safety that you may not experience from the regular Joe, and that's why she would be your person. And so when it comes to women, hearing men being on their last, or even perceiving that a man needs help in a particular way, whether he expresses it, whether he admits it or acknowledges it, or so on, the first way to run in or the first way to help is actually to stop and to listen, to find out where can I support him best? How can I help him meet the solution to this problem that he wants? And the first way to get that is by actually listening and paying attention.
Very powerful. Talk to us about therapy and accessing those life coach skills, services that you have, and just, being open to getting help outside of yourself as a man.
Yeah. I would say first that because we defined earlier in the conversation what psychological pain is, we understand then that as human beings, when we have pain in any sphere of our lives or our human experience, we want to escape that pain. But we want to do that in a healthy way. I mean, some of us, we like to take matters into our own hands, so we won't even go to the doctor. Yeah. Some of us may have a toothache, we take the old-time remedies. You may put a piece of clove or garlic on your teeth, or maybe gargle with salt water. But you can only do so much to try to abate that pain before you have to seek a professional, right? But I tell people in other spaces, let's say, for example, you have financial pain or financial issues, you may go to an advisor, you go to the bank for a loan. You may have physical pain, like as I said, something in your chest, something in your back. You may seek a cardiologist, or you may go to, somebody who's orthopedic, somebody who can help you experience relief from that pain. Psychological pain is as important. Emotional pain or emotional fogginess, cloudiness, it's as important. Even if we want to avoid the word pain because of the negative connotation of people perhaps thinking it's weakness, or people perhaps thinking that it's going to trigger something traumatic in them. Yeah. Let's just say it on the level of displeasure, discomfort, a lack of clarity, fogginess, cloudiness. And so our services, and when I say I mean, mental health professionals, our services would be to help you experience relief and comfort from the psychological pain, but more so to help you achieve a level of focus and clarity that you may not have experienced before, and that you may have been seeking or trying to establish that by yourself, but you just don't have the tools. Yeah. You just don't have the remedies. And I want to use this analogy. I remember my mom, there was a time when she had a very high blood pressure. And I mean, for days she had been experiencing high blood pressure. And I saw her doing a lot of home remedies, drinking the garlic tea and biting garlic and all these different things that you may want to do, but nothing was working. And then we went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "How long have you been experiencing this?" And she said, "Well, about a week." And the doctor said, "Ma'am, if you had not come in today, because of the trend of your readings, you were on the road to having a stroke."
Wow.
And that's how important it is to psychological pain. If we don't address it and strike the iron while it's hot, it may come to a point where trying to take matters into your own hands with your own limited knowledge or with your limited experience and already negative outlook on life, that causes you to further spiral downward, and we know how those things could end.
Yeah.
So wow. I would say seek the help, seek the support. In my case, I am a behavioral therapist, but I think that when I tell people that, it gets them more intimidated. So I otherwise prepared myself as a holistic life coach. And that holistic approach, it's literally, we are taking your life and I'm holding your hand and walking you through the alleys of your life, or the hallways of your life, and holding your hand to go into those doors or those rooms that you may have locked away and you want nobody else to see, or you may have never even explored, but you're just afraid to go into those areas. But I tell people, one way for you to advance in life, the first thing you have to do is take stock. Take stock. And that's what we do, as mental health professionals. We help you take stock to understand where you are at, what you're currently expressing, looking at the quality of your thoughts, just looking at the quality of your environment, because sometimes it's not that you have a problem, but just the space, the area that you're in, the people that you surround yourself with, the habits that you have formed gradually over the years, those things are the things that are causing you the psychological pain and reinforcing those. So we help you identify those things. I would help you identify those areas, detect where there's cloudiness, and together we will walk from the darkness and we'll come into the light. And you experience a level of clarity and focus such as never before.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dallison, for joining us this morning. Before you wrap, how can persons get more information on you, whether it's your website or on social media or contact number?
Definitely. So I can be found on Instagram or Facebook with the handle Delhi Digest. I mean, it's here on my shirt somewhere. Yeah, Delhi Digest. DELLIDIGEST. I refer to my social media profiles as a virtual safe space, a virtual community where we come in and literally we address all matters, ranging on all matters, sexuality, spirituality, bias, vulnerability, all of those things that people tend to find very difficult to talk about. We talk about it all. I bring forward relevant content on a regular basis, and people can connect, as part of the community. And then extending beyond that, of course, I have my website that persons can find me, www.DallisonCharles.com, and you can come there. You can see the list of services I offer. You can see the testimonials from persons that I have worked with, so you can understand that this is not a hoax. It's not a fluke. There is methods. There are methods behind it. There's a method to what people may perceive as madness, but at the end of it, you really do come out being a better version of yourself. And I know that that's a buzzword. People hear a better version of yourself. Yeah. But honestly, who does not want to be the best versions of themselves? Exactly. It just requires you to overcome the hurdle of discomfort, overcome the hurdle of stereotype and bias and negative connotation. And once you can get past that, then you break into the realm of experiencing authenticity. And that's what my work is marked by. My philosophy is authenticity. So at the end of it, you come out being able to celebrate yourself for the ways in which you grow. You come out being able to extend grace to yourself, and you come out just being fueled, energized, but most importantly, informed and prepared to make advances and put one foot in front of the other to become that better person.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dallison, for sharing with us this morning. We really, really appreciate you. All the best to you and in your work. We take a short break. When we come back, we have lots more.
Did you know that polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS, is one of the most common issues faced by women of reproductive age in Trinidad and Tobago?
So we see more patients with polycystic if they're obese, but there are the small-built patients who also have polycystic ovaries.
What other treatment options are there available for these girls? What's Up Doc? Every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
The best birthday gifts are at dbesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices, like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Thank you for staying with us. Our next guest is going to talk to us a bit about SEA. Now, we know SEA is a major exam here in Trinidad and Tobago and in the Caribbean. We know our young people are under tremendous pressure to perform well, to go into a good school, as we call it, a good school, and we'll unpack that in this interview. And because of that, we know that we need to inspire them, to help them, to motivate them. So our next guest has a wonderful initiative called Motivate Me to SEA. Joining us via Zoom is Garlene Hicks, an educator and student empowerment coach. Garlene, welcome.
Good morning, Dominique.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. So let's unpack SEA. Now, SEA, from my memory, my own experience, SEA was a difficult time. It was a lot of pressure. Talk to us about that and you know, what these students kind of go through around that time.
Well, of course, I mean, in my time, it was common entrance, so I'm probably giving out my age here. But, you know, there was always that pressure to do well and to excel, and then, of course, to get accepted to a school that you deemed, you know, high standard school, prestige school, if you want to use that term. And, you know, there was always that pressure to do well and to excel. So that in itself, there was lots of anxiety surrounding that. And I think today, you know, we've been seeing a lot of and hearing a lot of children who speak about the same level or maybe even more levels of anxiety that they experience while preparing for the examination. Yeah. So I think the pressure is it's still on, very much so.
Yeah. I mean, talk to us now about Motivate Me to SEA. You know, how this initiative came about, as well as, you know, the SEA John 100 initiative as well.
Yes, so the Motivate Me to See it's I would say a second leg of the initiative. CJUN 100. CJUN 100, that really emerged from, it was a workshop that I conducted for SCA kids, and I realized that I wanted to reach more children. So the following year I decided the best way to possibly do that is to create a Facebook group. Okay. So that became CJUN 100, and that was 100 days of resources for children posted on Facebook so they can access together with their parents. And the SEA really means, at least the acronym that I'm using, is self-emotion awareness. So the entire program, the Facebook group, when that started, every single day the students would be able to learn more about themselves, learn more about their emotions, learn more about their reactions, how they can actually minimize anxiety and that sort of thing. So it was really just allowing the child to become more self-aware. So that was CJUN 100. Right. And I just wanted this to, you know, to impact students continuously. So I thought, you know what, with the assistance of some of my dear colleagues, they said, listen, we are going to create this into an ebook. So we created the ebook that children can have access to even after that CJUN 100 Facebook group ended. Wow. So this is now sort of a spin-off this year, and I just changed the name a little bit, Motivate Me to See, but it's similar content. Yeah. And this one is on a shorter scale. So this one is for the month of March. The CJUN 100 actually was 100 days. This one started at the beginning of March, and it's going to go until SE is on the 29th. Right. So they have a month of these resources in this group. Yeah.
So we definitely will get that information on where persons can access that Facebook page. But talk to us about the significance of becoming self-aware, especially at that age. Self-awareness, you know, even social emotional learning. Talk to us about that.
Absolutely. So social emotional learning, allowing a child to understand their emotions, understand how they react, understand how their bodies react, that is really crucial and it affects so many different facets of life. It allows the child to be able to communicate a little bit more, to understand what they are feeling, and also to not be not be affected as negatively if they can understand what is happening, why they're experiencing anxiety, for example.
Right.
A lot of research has shown that, learning about yourself for the child, it also impacts their academic performance. So here we are sort of having a foundation that can also improve their academics because they are not going to feel as overwhelmed or as anxious if they are aware of certain tools and techniques that they can use to minimize those uncomfortable feelings. And I think as adults, we go through anxiety, many of us, and it can be debilitating. So imagine for a child who is now under so much pressure for this exam and they're not understanding what's going on and how they're supposed to cope. So this is really helping the child to gain awareness of themselves, and in so doing they can regulate themselves, they can manage their emotions, and they can just all around be just happier children, and they can have a better learning experience even throughout this stressful time.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you mentioned that aspect of it with children, feeling anxious. And us as adults have these same feelings too. As a child, parents, kind of say, well, children don't have anything to worry about. You don't have to see about all these things. You just have to focus on your schoolwork. Just focus on your schoolwork. But sometimes that's a really big deal. Talk to us about how receptive the parents were in the first leg of this before, to the learning resources that were posted, because I'm sure some of them are now, unlearning things and learning now how to cope and how to maneuver and navigate this life with their child.
Absolutely. Well, when we did the CGM 100, I was so pleased that there were several teachers, and a few of them would have reached out to me, and they indicated that they were actually using the program within their classroom. And that was really one of my intentions, because as an educator myself, I know how helpful it can be to have additional resources. So there were teachers that reached out to me, and there was one occasion I actually popped into one of the classrooms and did a session with the children. So that was lovely. And you had parents also telling me how appreciative they were because they were able to be a part of the process and engage with their children. And that is really one of the objectives as well of this program. I want parents to know that their role is crucial. They have a serious role to play, and they can also become involved in this journey. And really, a lot of these skills that we're developing, it's not just for the children. Parents have said to me that they have been able to learn about their own thoughts and how that impacts their mood and their behavior and that sort of thing. So this is not just something that is going to cater to the SEA children and that's it. This is going to have ripple effects, and all the stakeholders involved will also be hopefully positively impacted.
Now, you've been an educator for 20 years, and you are so passionate about what you're doing and, instilling these key goals and these key components in children. What keeps you going, for this period of time and beyond? What motivates you?
Well, I have seen, because I've been in the education system for so long, this year will be 20 years, September. So I have always had an interest in two things, education and psychology. So within teaching, it's not just about academics. In my mind, I don't just see that as my role. I see my role as instilling much more than just, academics and the drilling the curriculum. Of course, very important. But I have seen firsthand the impact of these other skills and developing these skills in my students. So that has been one of the main things that has motivated me, because I've seen the positive influence and I've seen the eagerness of children to learn about themselves. I don't know if you remember as a student, anytime the teacher sidetracked to something else outside of what was on the curriculum.
Yes.
Everybody got quiet and they were listening.
Yes.
So that happens a lot in my classes because, I'm always talking to these children, always trying to get them to sort of be more critical in their thinking, to process their thoughts, to understand consequences. So it's, I've seen the significance of that. And I know for me, that has been a true motivator for all these years.
I want you to go into some advice that you could give to teachers. Teachers who may be, because they've been teaching for years, they've been doing like one particular way, it's worked that way. But we know it's an ever-changing society. The generation that's coming up now is different from the generation that existed before, which means the learning patterns, what they're exposed to is different. What advice would you give to teachers in terms of, relearning and learning about this new generation, incorporating technology and all of these different things into it?
Well, really, I would just like to tell them, be open. Be open, because we are experiencing, it's a very different generation. And I am seeing the drastic difference from when I started almost 20 years ago to now. Our children are exposed to so much more. The technology has exposed them and to so much more. We came out of online teaching. Let's be real. We had to go through that for a period of time. So I know that all our teachers realize that we are in a different time. So I think being open and receptive and utilizing resources. We have so many resources online that could help us and facilitate new ways of doing things. So it's just a matter of receptivity, being open, and just maintaining, our mission in terms of, ensuring that these children not only learn academically, but are able to go into society and contribute effectively. And they can do that when they know about themselves and they understand themselves.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice.
Right. In terms of parents and then children themselves, the children who be doing SE, for parents who may, because sometimes you have parents, I remember in my year in SE, there were parents who would not have had knowledge of how to help. They may not be able to help with the maths or help with the English.
Exactly.
And you as a parent, you're supposed to be the person that's guiding and teaching and correcting, but you feel helpless. What advice would you give to them in terms of, being open to accessing external help, whether it's lessons, whether it's joining the Facebook group, getting help for themselves? What would you say to them?
Well, again, as well, they too have to, be aware that maybe they may not be able to help with the academics or the math or whatever, but they can help their children in a much deeper way. And I think through this program, and again, also reaching out to, other resources where they're able to understand their children more, because I think a lot of parents, they too feel like there's this gap.
Right.
There's this gap between, what they know maybe themselves to be at that age and how their children are now. So I feel as if parents too have to be open to communicate with other parents as well. It'd be great if there can be that network that's fostered within the school, because we must have parents who feel much more comfortable. Maybe they can reach out to other parents who don't feel as comfortable, imparting the knowledge to their children. So I think it's important to be open and to be able to communicate those needs and not be ashamed about it, because not every parent necessarily will have that ability to assist their child academically. But I know for certain they can help their child as it relates to them developing their own sense of self. So this program, I think, could help tremendously.
Yeah. And before we go to where we can find this program on Facebook, this Facebook page, and join and get that support, what advice would you give to the SE students? They're seeing that time is counting down, the exam is almost here. What advice would you give to them?
I want to tell these children that they are and always will be worthy, and regardless of any examination that they are going to take, that is in no way a reflection of who they are and the important contribution they have to make to this world. So I want to encourage them and motivate them. I want to tell them that they will do well. They can think positively, visualize themselves feeling relaxed in the exam, understanding that there is life after SEA, and again, to know their worthiness, and that is really, really important. Self-love is also one of those topics within this program.
Yeah.
So I want them to know that it's most important that they love themselves, and of course, their parents have to also impart that to them. So that would be my message, and anyone could locate the Facebook group, Motivate Me to See. That is for this particular Facebook group, and I could also direct them to the CJune 100 ebook, which is at bit.ly/CJune100, so they can locate those resources there as well.
Nice, nice. Thank you so much, Garlene, for joining us, for sharing with us. This initiative is really amazing and is definitely necessary. You know, unpacking that children need help, and not just the academic help, but that emotional support, that motivation, just as much as adults do. And something you said, you know, it stood out to me. There is life after SEA. So there's life after the results, you know. There's life after that. One more question, because I know we mentioned it both before about, you know, doing SEA and, you know, hoping to pass for a good school. You know, that stigma that's attached to the school that you go to. Just share with us about that, you know, and you know, understanding that it's not necessarily the school. Yeah.
Yes. You know, they say, there's a saying, bloom where you are planted. And I strongly believe that wherever life takes these young children after SEA, they are there for a reason.
Yeah.
And they can be and do and become anything they desire. Their attitude is what we need to focus on. So regardless of where you go, and of course, we wish all the best to all the students. Just keep in mind that wherever you are there for a reason, and you can learn everywhere and anywhere. And you have to be mindful of what you are bringing to the table and what attitude you're bringing to the table, because that will contribute greatly to your success.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Garlene, and talking to us about Motivate Me to See. We appreciate you. All the best with this initiative.
Thank you so much. All the best to you.
Thank you. We take a short break. We have much more.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry, "Uncle." They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios, but they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers? Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
Coming up in the second hour, we have our Spotlight on Creatives interview, where we'll be talking to director, playwright, and poet Alan Charles. Before we get to that, we have some international news that we want to toss to. So we're looking at Greece, and tens of thousands of people marched in Greece on Wednesday to protest over the country's deadliest train disaster on record, as workers stage a nationwide day-long walkout. Our friends at France 24 has more on this.
Thousands gathered in Athens to protest against systemic failings, which led to 57 deaths in Greece's worst ever train disaster. Tensions between police and protesters mounted as petrol bombs were hurled. The collision between a passenger train and an oncoming freight train has triggered anger across the country, with many blaming government neglect.
Yes, you feel angry because the government did nothing for all those kids. The public transport is a mess, basically. And yes, now all those people are here to support and so that something must be done.
Strikes which began earlier in the day brought Greece's transport system to a standstill as workers across several sectors walked out to express their discontent. It's the latest in a series of demonstrations, some which turned violent, since the crash on February 28th. On Sunday, Greece's Prime Minister apologised for any responsibility the government had in causing the disaster, an apology reiterated by the new Transport Minister this Wednesday, who took office after his predecessor resigned last week.
The responsibility that belongs to the government has been assumed. The system will not restart until there's a technological upgrade and only under improved security conditions.
The government initially blamed human error. The station master at the time of the crash is currently facing charges of manslaughter. But the Prime Minister, who faces elections this summer, has now promised to cooperate with an inquiry into the collision.
In more international news, we look at France. March 7th marked the 6th day of industrial action since January over the government's plans to reform pension rights and increase the retirement age from 62 to 64. France 24 has more on this.
We begin here in France, where garbage collectors, train drivers and teachers are among the many walking off the job today. A national strike marking their anger over government plans to increase France's retirement age from 62 to 64. We're seeing live images there of a mass rally here in the centre of Paris, making its way through the city streets. At least 260 demonstrations have been held across the country, with police estimating somewhere between 1.1 million and 1.4 million people will be taking part. France 24's Liza Kamenoff has more from the mass rally in the centre of Paris.
Sèvres-Babylon in central Paris, where the 6th nationwide protests against the government's pension reform are about to set off. Now, behind me in the distance, you can see the balloons of the 8 major trade unions floating, ready to go, and they're joined today by 5 youth organizations who have been waving their banners too. Now, the atmosphere at the moment is quite festive. Whilst people are joining bit by bit, you've got music playing, people singing, dancing, barbecues being cooked, food and drink being sold. And today the turnout is expected to be as high, even higher perhaps, than the January 31st protests, where police are thinking 1.1 to 1.4 million protesters are expected across the country, of which 60,000 to 90,000 are expected in Paris alone. And the aim is clear. The unions have been saying, they've been promising to step up the movement and bring the country to a halt, and also the economy to its knees. And you can see that with the people who are gathering here today. It's not just the energy sector people, it's not just the rail workers. Today they are joined by the teachers, the pharmacists, the garbage collectors, the aeronautics sector and the metal sector. So it just shows how many people have heeded the call to come together a 6th time and take to the streets. And there will be other demonstrations like these happening across the country in over 320 locations, notably in cities like Bordeaux, Lille, Lyon and Marseille.
Liza Kamenoff reporting there from Sèvres-Babylon in the centre of the city.
We head to the news. Coming up in the second hour, we speak to Alan Charles, a playwright and a director, about his upcoming play, and we have some regional news. See you on the other side of the break.
is your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. WASA traffic restrictions at Golden Grove Road. UNC says Transparency International has lost its credibility. National Security Minister condemns school fights. And internationally, foiled airport heist in Chile leaves 2 dead. Now for the details. WASA has announced the implementation of traffic restrictions at the corner of Golden Grove Road and the Churchill Roosevelt Highway near Bagwan Singh's Hardware on March 10th from 8 p.m. to March 11th at 4 a.m. The purpose of these restrictions is to facilitate pipeline interconnection works. Motorists and the general public are advised to proceed with caution and follow the instructions of the police officers on duty near the job site. Only single-lane traffic will be available during this time. The Trinidad and Tobago Transparency Institute has made a mockery of transparency and accountability. So says opposition PRO Dr. Kirk Mayhew. In a statement, he said that after being extremely vocal during the 2010 to 2015 People's Partnership Administration, it has become absolutely silent until now, and they find their voice not to criticize the PNM and government, but to attack the opposition UNC. Mayhew says Transparency International has played a key part in the PNM smear and slander machine. He added that the TTTI must reform itself to live up to its mandate, or else it must be disbanded and an end finally be put to this farce of an organization. National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines has expressed concern with the growing trend of school fights. In a post, the minister said it seems that bad behavior will not stop until someone is killed. The minister said it is unbelievable that students of different schools are in competition to determine which school could generate the most fights. Sadly, this is the unfortunate result of our collective poor socialization of our youth. Hines believes that children's behaviors are also seriously influenced by the events occurring outside of their homes and their country via social media. Meanwhile, he said the girls at SAGS are in stiff competition to see which school wins the most scholarships. The minister added that the law enforcement platform of national security will do its part, but parents, teachers, and others in society must all join in to do theirs. In international news now, a foiled multi-million-dollar heist at Chile's largest airport has left 2 dead. Footage widely shared on social media shows a shootout between robbers and officials from Chile's DGAC Aviation Agency at the Arturo Merino Benitez International Airport in Santiago. Chief Prosecutor Eduardo Baeza said Wednesday the assault resulted in the deaths of a DGAC airport security official and one of the robbers. Well, that was your News of the Hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
But if we died with Christ, we have faith that we will also live with him. We know that Christ has been raised from the dead, and he will never die again. Death no longer has power over him. He died to sin once and for all with his death, but he lives for God with his life. Join WESN as we explore the death and resurrection of Christ with He is Risen, a perspective from bearing leaders within the Christian faith. He is Risen, starting March 27th, only on WESN, the content capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back. We're going to go into some regional news before we talk to our last guest today. And we're going to head to Jamaica. So reports from their 2023 budget debate, the Minister of Finance stated that no new taxes would be implemented in the upcoming fiscal year. Additionally, the Minister of Finance said that funds have been set out to pay public sector workers based on the new compensation plan. Jamaica News Today has more on this report.
Up first, $30 billion has been set aside to pay at least 3 public sector groups who are yet to sign on to the new compensation regime. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark made the announcement this evening as he opened the budget debate in the House of Representatives. Now reporter Andrea Chisholm was listening and now joins us live. Andrea.
Well, Giovanni, the finance minister finished his presentation about minutes close to 6:30, and the public sector compensation regime featured as a hot-button topic in his speech. We know that the workers at the Registrar General's Department, for example, went on a sick-out, and there was also industrial action by teachers. Now, the government is adamant that the retroactive sums from April 1 last year have to be settled by the end of March this year, so we just have a few weeks to go. Now, 3 major groups are yet to sign a deal: teachers, doctors and police personnel. Let's start with the police. Dr. Clark stated that $10.5 billion has been set aside for them.
I say, Madam Speaker, to rank and file members of the police force, please allow us to pay you the $10.2 billion that we have for you. Madam Speaker, there's an additional $1 billion for district constables and $600 million for members of the Police Officers Association. That's $11.8 billion that is ready to go. Madam Speaker, the total amount that we have for teachers is approximately $12 billion that we have, is budgeted for, is provided for. It sits waiting for you, Madam Speaker, if you just give me the permission, Madam Speaker, through agreement to give it to you. Madam Speaker, the total amount that we have for doctors is $6.4 billion, and we want the doctors to receive these amounts in March of 2023.
Still on employment-related issues, the finance minister indicated that the government is moving to make several contract positions permanent. For example, in the education sector, cooks and assistant cooks, watchmen and caregivers will be offered permanent positions. Now, while they work out those arrangements, sanitation workers received some good news.
Madam Speaker, no financial institution takes sanitation workers seriously. They can't sustain any savings. As you put out little money, so your contract end, you use it, you broke. Yes. And then them call you back at work, and as you quit your eye, the contract done again. And the cycle go round and round, year after year, decade after decade. But we tell you something, Madam Speaker, the cycle done now. In fiscal year 2023-24, we will make sanitation workers at the National Solid Waste Management Agency who have completed the necessary probationary periods into permanent employees.
That was our regional update. Now we're going to our final interview, and it's our spotlight on creatives. And I have someone who is extremely creative with us in studio. We have Alan Charles, who is a poet, a playwright, and a director. He's based in London, but he always comes back home to do his plays. We're going to talk to him about his process, about his journey through this journey of creativity, and about his upcoming play this weekend. Welcome, Alan.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
No
Good
problem.
to be here.
It's good to see you, Alan. It's been a while.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
All right. Now you are super creative. You're writing, you're performing poems, spoken word, you're doing plays. I was in a play that you did back in the day. In the Man's Dam. I mean, tell us, where did this start? Was this something that you always wanted to do? Were you always writing?
I guess it started in my youthful days as a teenager.
Yeah.
Actually, before teenage, because I always tell the story that I grew up in St. Vincent.
Okay.
So I spent my formative years in St. Vincent, and I always say that the Caribbean, our culture, is one of storytelling in whatever we do.
Yes.
And so it was always there growing up hearing stories, whether it was a Nancy story, John B story, around the moonlight, roasting breadfruit and telling stories. So it's always been us. And obviously, growing up in church as well, all the Bible stories, pastor preaching, telling stories. So I guess the foundation has always been there in me.
All right, let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk more about those stories.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
Thank you for joining us. If you're now joining on, we're speaking to Alan Charles, poet, playwright, and director. Alan, you were just telling us about those stories that we have that are so rich in the Caribbean. How do you translate those stories, things you would have heard, things you experienced, to now this stage and bringing it before us in a way that's digestible, entertaining, but also educating?
I guess it's just internalizing it and making it relevant to our day. and to our culture and to how we view things in 2023. So like growing up, like I said, I'm a product of the church. So all those biblical stories, but you notice pastors would retell the stories in a different way, and each pastor would tell the story in a different way. So that was always there as a foundation. Now I actually started out as today they call it DJing. Back in the day, it's called toasting.
All right.
Yeah, and like poetry over music. But I am Seventh-day Adventist.
Right.
Traditional church, and obviously back then in the 80s, reggae wasn't really accepted.
So how were you able to do that? Did you have the height to do that?
No, so I had to take the music away and just focus on the lyrics because it wasn't accepted.
Right.
So that's how the spoken word was developed.
Okay.
Out of my love for reggae DJing and pretending to be famous Jamaican DJs, but because it wasn't accepted, I had to leave the music aside and just focus on the spoken word. And so that became my foundation as a spoken word artist.
Right.
But as with growing and changes now, the reggae and the stuff was allowed, so I could put it back in. Not too much, and so that developed, and then from there now, because obviously poetry, spoken word, you're telling stories in 3-4 minutes in a poem. So the transition now from poetry to the stage was the natural progression of telling a larger story, and so that's how the actual playwriting came about.
And one of the things that I love about your plays, your work, is that you're able to touch topics that may be taboo, topics that nobody wants to address, sediments them. You talked about relationships among female friends, relationships among male and female, all these different, nuances and intricacies. And then in this play you have with Midlife Crisis, you're talking about within a marriage, within the church, someone in office. Talk to us about those issues that you're able to address.
Okay, so we're dealing with a husband and wife, married for 26 years.
Yes.
The kids have grown. They've left the roost. The mortgage is paid. So now all the big stuff that kept the family together are now gone.
Right.
They look across the table and they realize, I'm not sure I like you. I'm not sure I'm in love with you. I'm not sure we have a connection. Our connection seemed to have been doing life, raising the kids and paying the bills. But now that those are gone, do we have enough to see us through the next 30 years? And so that's when they start to reassess their life and looking at stuff that they thought they would have accomplished by then, but maybe marriage came in the way to stop those. And now they're seeking to fulfill those goals, but sometimes at the expense of the marriage. And so we see the husband, Wayne, who is really want to create a legacy for himself now, and he's working every hour God sends, but the wife is feeling neglected, unappreciated. And in her situation of being feeling neglected, they always say, if you don't take care of your business, somebody will be willing to take care of your business. And so while she's feeling neglected, somebody is giving her the time of day. And so she's now challenged with, do I take this option here, or do I work on my marriage? And we just see the dynamic of how they work themselves through this situation that have been caused, because sometimes midlife crisis can be affected by decisions you made in your youth, in your young days. So I would say, encourage anybody to, while you're young, still prepare for the future, get your stuff together, because it will catch up on you eventually.
Right. One of the things that we do see is that your work is done both in England and also in the Caribbean.
Indeed.
How does that, I guess, not compare, but what are the differences in terms of the delivery of it and the reception of the work?
Right. Okay, so the Caribbean is more colorful, more bacchanal, more loud, more joyful, more, whereas obviously in the UK, more reserved.
Yes.
So you get more laughter and hilarity in the Caribbean, especially in Trinidad.
Okay.
In the UK, it's more reserved. However, we went to Tobago last week.
Okay.
And there is a distinct difference between Trinidad and Tobago culturally accepting the work.
Okay, explain.
In Trinidad, from the first word, the audience is with us, laughing, heckling, whatever.
Right.
In Tobago, you could hear a pin drop up until about 40 minutes into the play.
So they were listening intently.
Well, I didn't know if they were listening, if they didn't like it. I was panicking.
Okay.
Yeah, but at the end, they loved it.
Okay.
I mean, they were just.
They were focused.
Yeah, they were
focused.
focused.
Listening.
Yeah, they were listening.
Yeah.
But it was different because in Trinidad, from the get-go,
right,
they were with us. But Tobago was more laid back. In fact, it was kind of British actually.
Okay.
In the response, but once they got into it and they warmed to it, then they went for it, and it's beautiful. But yeah, so I would say that the Caribbean is always more expressive, colorful, and as well in Trinidad, there's more ad-libbing.
Right.
You know,
yes.
Sometimes that's a challenge to get the cast to stick to the script.
I was not about to ask you the process because I know that you are based away.
Yes, indeed.
So you would start rehearsals with you being away.
We were.
What was that process like? Getting the different actors on board and doing rehearsals virtually,
right?
And then now coming in and doing rehearsals in person.
So we started Well, obviously the first show was back in October.
Yes.
So we started, I think it was February of last year, doing Zoom.
Okay.
You know, so we established a good vibes with everybody via Zoom, getting to know each other, getting to know the story, understanding the characters, just Zooming. And then when I came, because I normally come like 8 weeks before to do the in-person rehearsals. But it's always challenging as well because obviously you know that we have 2 teams.
Yes, explain that.
Right. So normally you'd have a main cast and you'd have understudies.
Right.
You know what I mean? The understudies is there in case the main person can't make it.
Right.
But we're human beings. Everybody wants to be on the stage.
Correct. Yes.
It's very difficult to motivate an understudy to learn the lines.
And never get to the stage.
Come to rehearsals every week, but never be on stage.
Right.
So I've made it my duty that whatever shows I'm doing, I have 2 teams, and you're guaranteed at least 1 night.
Okay.
As long as you are stage ready.
Right.
You understand? But obviously you are directing 2 teams at the same time, and also crossover teams as well.
Wow.
You know, so it has its challenges, but it's worked so far, and I think that people appreciate that. After all this work that they're doing, they do get a chance to go on stage. And obviously I'm here about creating opportunities for people who may not necessarily be into the arts to get a chance to take part in the arts, as well as those who want this as a life career to also have an opportunity as well.
Right. Before we get into the details for this weekend, one of the key things with your productions, and I say production because it's not just about the acting on stage, but you also incorporate music into it.
Yes.
So talk to us about that and the importance of merging music with the acting.
Okay. Well, obviously, like I said, I've got a background of music, you know, so I try to incorporate everything and give the plays variety.
Yeah.
So when you come to one of my plays like Love Sax Jazz or I'm Getting There, you're going to get some music, you're going to get some dancing, you're going to get some comedy, you're going to get some poetry, you're going to get the acting, because in an audience, different people react to different stuff.
Yes.
And because I'm trying to reach everybody, I'm trying to give everybody a piece of something. So when you come, there must be something that hooks you. You understand? So I try to be inclusive of everybody and using as many art forms as I can, especially the ones that I have come out of, the music, the poetry, the spoken word, the drama, the theatre.
Nice. So give us details now on this weekend. You have a show on Saturday and Sunday.
Saturday and Sunday at Central Bank. Tomorrow, at 7 p.m. Tickets, you can still get tickets. They're only $175, available from A&A Pharmacy on Charlotte Street or Living Legacy up in Arima. If you come on the day, tickets are only $200. We start at 6 on Sunday, 7 p.m. on Saturday. So please come out and support good quality, clean theatre, family focus, entertainment. We're trying to produce entertainment that the whole family can come and attend, and really enjoy as a family.
Yeah, and it's called midlife crisis. You're dealing with issues that all of us relate to.
Go for it. So people think midlife crisis, it doesn't affect the youth, but obviously If you are a teenager, then your parents are probably going through a midlife crisis.
Right.
How does that affect you?
Yes.
So in the play, it's a family play. So it's not just about the people who are going through it. It's how it affects your family, your friends, your neighbors, work colleague, everything. So you're going to come, you're going to laugh, you might cry, you're going to be able to relate to the actors and actresses because it's real and it's relatable. And so, yeah, you're going to get a bellyful of laughter.
Nice. I am looking forward to being there this weekend. I want to take in midlife crisis. Thank you, Alan, for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so you can check it out. And if persons want to get in touch with you on social media.
Yeah, Alan Charles or Focus Arts Promotions. And also as well, look out for, because we're going to be doing a casting call week after next for a production that we're going to return to Tobago in November. So check us out on Alan Charles on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram and also Midlife Crisis on Facebook as well.
Nice. Thank you, Alan, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We're wrapping the show today. We've had a wonderful session. We've spoken about mental health and giving men a chance to be. We've also spoken about SCA and motivating children as they prepare for SCA that's happening later this month. Remember, our daily inspiration quote for today was to give yourself a chance. Give yourself a chance to be happy. Give yourself a chance to breathe. Give yourself a chance for whatever it is that you're facing at this moment, to live in that moment. We have our Watch This, and we are continuing to celebrate women. And this Watch This is Just Liz, a local talented singer, taking her video. We'll see you next week.
Your brown skin, yes, I wanna wrap you up and lock you in my arms and your brown skin. passion you bring, a brown skin. Ooh, I wanna wrap you, keep you in my arms and team.
I'm Sean Michael Small, and we are WESN, the Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
What's the best way to grab the